Hi, I'm here to introduce Foothill's new president, Dr. Kristina Whalen. Hi, Dr. Whalen.
Hi, nice
How
to
are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. First and foremost, welcome to Foothill.
Thank
We're
you.
very excited to have you here today, and we're very excited to introduce you to faculty and students.
I'm very happy to be here. I've been a couple of times on campus since being appointed the president of Foothill, and every single one of them has been a warm welcome, and I've learned something new every time.
That's amazing. We're really happy that that's your experience here. So let's just jump in.
Okay.
Where are you from? Did you originally grow up in California, in the Bay Area?
I did not. I did not. I was actually born in Washington, D.C., and I was born in George Washington University Hospital. I spent the early part of my life around the Washington, D.C., Virginia, the outlying areas of Washington, D.C. I went to kindergarten and grade school in Fairfax, Virginia.
Oh, wow.
And then I moved with my family to Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
And we moved back to the DC area. And then what you may be asking yourself, why was I hanging around the Washington DC area? But my father was a Secret Service agent.
Oh, wow.
And so when you're stationed so close to the White House, you do an enormous amount of travel as part of the presidential detail.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I think at some point he was a little tired of all of that travel, and so he wanted to move to a field office. So he picked us up and moved us to Springfield, Missouri. So that's quite different than the DC urban area.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's where I went to middle school, and I went to high school in Springfield, Missouri.
So you spent a lot of time in the Midwest and East Coast mostly.
Yeah.
So when did you get to California?
Well, I went to college at the University of Tulsa and then Missouri State University. And then I went to graduate school at Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida.
You're all over the U.S.
I loved being there. And in fact, when I finished up my doctorate program there, I thought I would stay in the Southeast. By that time, I'd gotten used to the humidity and the giant bugs. I was used to it all. But every time I put in an application for a job, and at that time, I was interested in any job that had to do with communications, that had to do with my specialty at that time, which was coaching young, mostly aspiring lawyers to be speech and debate competitors.
Oh, wow.
And there were so many job openings in California, which is not surprising given that there are 116 community colleges and 22 California State University.
Yes.
And so I landed my first postgraduate job at California State University, Chico.
Wow.
So I joke that I moved from Tally to Cali, which is from Tallahassee, Florida, to Chico, California.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you did mention your doctorate degree, so I know that you have a doctorate degree in philosophy, which is very impressive. Was there a reason for this doctorate, for this subject? And do you think that aids in your upcoming position?
Well, I have a doctorate of philosophy in socio-political communication, and when I first entered into my, I'm sorry, I actually have a socio-political communications degree as an undergraduate. I have a rhetoric degree as a master's, and I have a speech communication degree for my doctorate. All of them you can see in the communication discipline.
Yeah.
I think it did prepare me for higher education leadership. The idea of rhetoric, that term analogy is probably problematic in lay person's terms. It often people use it to mean empty speech, but
very negative connotation.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, but the study of rhetoric is can be explained pretty simply, which is you're studying how to bring people to ideas and ideas to people. And so that's a large part, I think, of being part of a shared governance system, to be part of a higher education system that is so principled and mission driven, like the community college system.
Yeah.
So because we serve the most students with the least amount of resources, bringing advocacy to bear on behalf of our students is a large part of that.
Yeah.
So those things I think I draw upon again and again when I'm thinking about how my academic expertise has aided me in being a leader in a community college.
And then, was getting this degree always in your plans? Did you go into college thinking, I'm going to get a master's, I'm going to get a PhD?
No, not at all. I did not. I went into when I was an undergraduate, I started out as a broadcast journalism degree, and that came from, I was a speech and debate competitor from the time I was 14, and my expertise was original oratory. So I was a speech maker, and I thought I would translate those skills into a career in broadcast journalism. So I went in there, but I continued to engage in competitive debate, and I became very immersed in understanding political science, hence the socio-political communication degree. And I just continued to want to be part of the laboratory of ideas and critical thinking that was part of being a competitive debater at that time. And so I just continued to stay in academia. I worked on my master's, and of course I got a graduate assistantship, coaching speech and debate, and then the same throughout my doctorate. So I think by the time I was in my master's degree, I was pretty certain I was going to stay in academia. And I went straight through. So I marked time by an academic calendar. It's all I've ever known.
You're like, this is really great. Let's just keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
Might as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, kind of going off of that, what does higher education mean to you? What does going to college mean to you? What does getting these degrees mean to you?
Well, I think there's a kind of a general philosophy that I would ascribe to, and then I think there might be something I'd want to say that's pretty particular to the promise of education that comes from living in the Bay Area. Generally I think of education as having a couple of tiers, and one of those is we're really using education as a way to join traditionally young people to the responsibilities of citizenship, to the kind of citizenship literacy that we would want people to have, and now a literacy that comes with living in a very culturally diverse world. And then I think the second, and when I say second, I just mean not less important. Thank you. Thanks for helping me out there. Is that it gives the promise of economic mobility and economic stability. Because despite maybe some narratives that exist about the there are some narratives out there about how education might be obsolete, that you can get training on the job, or you can have a fine living without an academic degree. Evidence doesn't bear that out, and as a debater all my life that has marshaled the evidence, that's what I'm going to rely on.
That's the
right. In California, the disparity between the number of jobs that require a bachelor's degree and the number of bachelor's degrees that are being issued by higher education, that discrepancy is fairly large. And so we have a responsibility to meet that need and to really communicate our value proposition, that if you want a family sustaining wage, That is so important, especially living in the high-cost areas of the Bay Area.
Yes.
The promise of education needs to deliver for its students. And so I think that means that for me, I feel really compelled to provide a counter narrative to maybe the arguments that are out there that you might not need an education, or education isn't for everyone, because I think it is. And that when someone leaves Foothill College, they have access to a family-sustaining wage that would allow them to live in an area like the Bay Area. They don't have to continue to move out and up or over to different states to feel like they can own a home or raise their family. Those are really important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You did mention that you had experience working with speech and debate students. I was wondering if that's the only experience you have working in an academic setting. Were you ever a professor, a teacher?
No, I was in the classroom. I started first teaching public speaking, argumentation, and debate when I was a graduate student back in the 90s. And then when I took my first professorship at CSU Chico, I was now not only teaching undergraduates, but I was teaching graduate students. And my specialization was in gender and communication. Or even feminist rhetorical theories. That was part of a graduate program that I put together. But I was largely, I spent a great deal of time in the classroom, teaching persuasion, argumentation, and debate, public speaking. So when I moved to segments over to the community college system, a story I told in my forum when I was being interviewed here was, just how connected I felt to the stories of the students, how multifaceted, how rich they were, how community college had students who had just graduated from college or were still in or just graduated from high school or were still in high school, to those that were coming back to retool for an encore degree. And those students had just an incredible impact on me. And so now I've lost sight of the question. Could you help me?
Yes, of course. It was teaching in an academic.
Oh yeah, teaching. Yes. So I was.
Stories are important. It's important to know.
I was passionate about teaching, and I was in the classroom in the community college from 2005 to 2015, when I moved into being the Dean of Fine Applied and Communication Arts.
So do you think that teaching gave you a very specific perspective on being an administrator?
I go to the skills and the understanding I had about the lives of our students again and again when I think about the leadership that I provide as administrator. I felt especially privileged that I had really close relationships with the students who were on my speech and debate team. We traveled on the weekends all over the state of California and beyond. And so I knew those students so well. But I also had 35 students coming through, about 4 other classes that I was teaching. So students that I didn't know as well, but I gained a lot by just knowing so many different students. So I think teaching is what we're here to do. That's why we build these buildings. That's why we have the mission that we have. So I find it incredibly important. Of course, it's not always necessary. You find many higher education leaders that didn't spend time in the instructional classroom. But I know that those that do draw upon that experience again and again.
So prior to becoming president, did you hear about Foothill College?
Oh yes.
Oh really?
Yes.
Oh, we're so excited to hear that. What did you hear?
Well, I feel like Foothill College has a reputation on par with, some of the rankings that you've sort of seen where, Foothill College, the number one community college in the nation, according to Niche. Foothill College has a reputation for being innovative, and it also has a reputation for being a site of innovation when it comes to instructional technology. So those are areas in which, you would hear the Foothill name or connect to the Foothill, to the activity here. You also have on this campus statewide leaders, faculty leaders that you see again and again. So when you see their leadership connected to the college, I think that elevates the reputation. I mean, Foothill College is held in high regard. I might tell you a story. Recently, my mother was just up here from San Diego, and she's a travel agent, and she actually teaches travel agent classes at Southwestern College in San Diego.
Wow.
And she has a longtime friend and client who wrote a pretty notable book on how to get into colleges. I think her book is called Admission Possible, a little play on mission. And so my mother had said, well, my daughter's about to become the president at Foothill College. And she sort of sat back and went, Donna, that's a very good college. And she was like, yes, I did know that. And then she proceeded to tell that her daughter, who went to Stanford, actually came over here while she was at Stanford to take classes to augment her studies. I think she was in veterinarian medicine.
Yeah.
And so, that's another area of, another feather, I think, in the cap of Foothill College is all of the partnerships it has with nearby colleges and universities, and most notably Stanford.
So Foothill has fantastic resources that in my time here I've used, and I believe that these resources are really amazing. So what resources offered are essential, and what new resources do you believe that we could implement?
That is a really great question. I'm not sure I can provide a complete answer, as I'm still sort of in learning mode about the conversations and the way the campus has prioritized resources. I will say that the energy that I have been connected to already is a energy around making sure that the basic needs of our students are met. And so when you think about how essential that is, and I think there's even a statewide conversation being had about that, where they're talking about downstream solutions. So that is, you might have a student who is really struggling to, make it through the semester or a quarter, or, make it to campus, or to have the food or the resources they need to complete their studies. And meeting those needs are considered it's not dealing with the student in crisis. It's finding what is the problem down the stream that we can fix, so that when the student is a Foothill College student, they are able to focus, they feel supported, they feel like this community cares for them. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of the community college system, which many people refer to as the People's College. And I think when you work at the People's College, you're saying this community college is the place that people turn to again and again when they need support. Whether that support be, I want to get to a transfer institution, I need to retool or reskill, I need English language learning acquisition, all of that, and the new focus on meeting students' needs so that they can be, and we attend to the whole student, I think has been really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Foothill's mission is to work to obtain equity and achievement of student outcomes for all California student populations, and are guided by our core values of honesty, integrity, trust, openness, transparency, forgiveness, and sustainability. What does that mean to you, and how will you strive to keep this mission true?
Well, those are all really important words. I think part of what I have a wonderful April planned for me of being welcomed by the campus and meeting the campus and learning about the programs and the services, most importantly, the students that are here. I'm really excited to listen to the students because I'm going to be interpreting those words and that mission through the feedback and the conversations that I'm going to have with students about the way this college is serving their goals. I think it's important to really sit with those words sometimes and not just go positive word, but to really reflect on what it means to live at a college that's devoted to sustainability, to be a college that embraces forgiveness. That's so important. And some of the values that are part of that mission statement now are maybe some of them are very unique to Foothill College. So I'm interested in shaping my interpretation of them in conversation with this campus community.
Seeing them in action.
And seeing, and having my viewpoint shaped by kind of a value that I've always held to and have been trying to have layers and layers of meaning to it, is the value of co-authorship. That if we're going to have a large initiative on campus, or we're going to, think about how we're serving students in a post-pandemic world a little bit differently, that there's not just a few people in a room somewhere thinking about what that would be, but that there's a lot of people contributing to it. It's almost the metaphor of the Google Doc, right? Everyone is on it.
Yeah.
Everyone is shaping it. You can see everyone's edits. You can see everyone's comments. That's a metaphor that really works for me. It really resonates for me. I've tried to make that a centerpiece of my leadership.
So, kind of talking about values, what does equity mean to you?
Well, one of the reasons why I was so motivated to apply for the presidency here was the definition of equity that this college has embraced, which is a very race-conscious definition of equity. And that's important, because when your strategic vision for equity is saying we want to have a campus community and outcomes and achievements that are no longer predictable by race, it is strategic.
Yes.
It is laser focused. It is a vision.
Yeah.
And so I really loved that. And when I read that document, I felt that the conversations about equity were really mature here. And they demonstrated to me that people were talking on this campus. They were also connecting with thought leaders on equity. That I think my vision of equity has so much congruence with the vision of equity that's outlined in the equity plans here. That really hastened my application to serve here. And then I think the most important part of any plan is that you actually implement it.
Of course.
So
not just statements.
Yes, that your strategic plan for equity cannot be a shelf document, that it has to have implementation around it. So I'm starting to get connected to the conversations about that implementation here. And the dean that's leading that work has a really innovative strategy for doing that.
Yeah.
And so I'm here to learn more. Yeah.
Okay. So every student that comes to Foothill, even for a short time, is really touched by the faculty and people they meet here. While president, how will you ensure that students who attend Foothill leave with a positive and memorable experience?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is, we have more than 50% of our instruction in the virtual modality right now.
Yeah.
And Foothill College has a reputation for being on the forefront of distance education. And so I feel really committed to finding the resources and to help the college sustain the really high quality education that students are having while they're, receiving their education remotely or virtually. I also know that virtual education doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
I think statewide survey data is telling us now that most students like a mix, right? They like to take some classes on campus, and but they like the flexibility that having a class or two online affords them. So I think, the commitment that I would like to make is to make sure that those worlds that students live in, the world of distance education and a very, the embodied world of walking in this campus are equally rich. And I know that Foothill has a really great reputation of that being true. And so I'm committed to making sure that that's sustained and we can even deepen it. When I was here for my interview and I talked to some of the student government leaders, they were very interested in having this campus have life. And so I think when I was here, it might have been during a break. So there was,
so it was empty.
There was that many students here. So I've loved this last couple of weeks when I've visited the campus to see the students walking around and to see that energy. And so I'm interested in listening to students to hear what it is that, how they would answer that question. Yeah, that's a really good one.
Thank you. And to not take up too much of your time, just one last question. So Foothill has had a lot of changes in administration, including the president position, which results in fall-through plans for growth. What plans and steps do you have to make sure that your goals are met and we see true growth here at Foothill?
So I was just talking with some of the senior leadership this morning, and I think there is a lot of thought being put into what are some of the challenges that are ahead, not just for Foothill College, but for many colleges around the state, if not the nation, which is what is one of those challenges is figuring out the post-pandemic world, which has created this almost paradigm shift that people have about their way they work and the way that they receive their education.
Yes.
There's also a new way that community colleges are being funded, and the pandemic ushered in a loss of enrollment for almost all community colleges. Wow. And since 70% of our funding is based upon how many students we're actually serving, that is a challenge that has to be faced.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's just providing the highest quality services when you're looking at having to serve students with maybe not the best budgetary outlook on the horizon. So I think there's a number of different strategies that are being looked at to not only serve the students that are here, but to reach out and provide a warm welcome back to Foothill College to those students who stopped out during the pandemic. And then, I'm really excited about some of the ideas that leadership in conversation with faculty and our classified professionals and maybe even our students have for reaching new audiences, thinking about what does it mean to be an institution of higher education in a world where maybe the way we've even configured what a classroom looks like, or what you may have heard of a Carnegie unit before. Do you know a Carnegie unit, right? This is for centuries, this is how we've delivered communication. Well, now there's different paradigms that are on the horizon, like competency-based education, that is kind of tilting that paradigm a little bit. And so it's challenging to think about, we're going to do things different, maybe even radically different, but it's also a real opportunity.
It's exciting.
It's exciting too. Yes, every challenge is an opportunity. And so I think, that's the energy that I hear. And I hear also some urgency around it. Like, we need to start thinking strategically about this and begin implementing some of our best ideas. So I'm interested to join at a time when Foothill College is about to embark on an educational master plan. Right now, its strategic plan for equity, I think, is really guiding this college. It's a powerful document, as I mentioned. But an educational master plan is a little bit of a more global document. And so I'm excited to be here when that's kicking off. What you would typically do during an educational master plan is do an environmental scan, like what's our community like now? What's our student population now? Where do we have gaps? Where do we have opportunity? And then really prioritizing what we're going to work on, what we're going to bear down on. So that's exciting work for me.
Very exciting. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Whalen, for speaking with me today. It's been a pleasure. And I know we're all really excited to see what's to come.
Well, great. Well, thank you for having me.
So
thank you for asking such insightful questions. And I look forward to continuing my relationship with the script and with more students here at the college.